Okay, welcome into our wonderful Easter day and all that it has of promise for you and for me. No accident brings us here today. There's something within our souls that is sensing that pull of its gravity. The sap within us is rising, and we know that the dynamic and the energetic of this day is special, and that it has a gift for us all. And so we're celebrating many things on this day. We're celebrating spring, and we're celebrating, resurrected life. We're celebrating the fact that at the moment we're enjoying nature's wonderful pageantry as millions and millions of seeds that seem to be lying in fallow earth at winter's dark times suddenly are bursting up everywhere, bursting forth, bringing with them this new and wonderful sense that life is on the move again. And the color and the fragrances and the flowers and the bushes and the trees, and not to mention nature itself and all the little bunny rabbits and lambs and so on and so forth that's appearing all over the place. It's very hard not to go around with a constant smile on your face, especially in the morning time when you hear the bird song. Those birds, oh my goodness, are they chirping up a wonderful cacophony, including those parrots flying around that make their own sound. I mean, they make me giggle. The parrots make me giggle, actually, as do the crows. But then that's another story about the crows. But God shows up in mysterious ways, and it's an amazing thing, too, how God sometimes shows up in disguise so that we're kept on our toes with regard to recognition. So what we're celebrating here today is not just an event that took place 2,000 years ago, and it's not just about one person who realized Christ consciousness, Jesus of Nazareth. It's about each and every one of us, and it's about Easter happening and available to us every single day of our lives. And it was a great good teacher, Jesus, that brought this fully to our conscious awareness, that whatever it is he had succeeded in achieving and becoming and doing and so on, that you and I could do the very same thing in our own way, in our own time, at our own pace. But yes, we could too realize what he had realized. And what did he realize? He realized what it was to be a whole individual, what it was to be the accomplished spiritual man, what it was to become consciously Christed. And the thing about that is for you and me to understand that each and every one of us are preordained to Christhood. Each one of us are pre-approved for Christhood. We come into the world Christed, but not consciously. We have to move into the consciousness of that as we move through our lives. And so he had succeeded and achieved that understanding and realization that he indeed was the glory of God fully alive. And having achieved it in himself, he was able to recognize that same glory of God in everybody else and get them, some of them, to realize it too in themselves and about themselves. And that's what today is about. You're here by no accident, and neither am I. We are here because there's a deep, deep desire within us. That sap is rising in us all the time. That pull of the soul's gravity is with us all of the time. To come higher, higher in conscious awareness of who we are and what we are and whose we are. And that's how we move ahead spiritually. That's how we unfold spiritually, because we're committed to being a spiritually realized being. We're committed, even unconsciously, some of us, to that self-realization, that self-actualization, that God-realization, that Christ consciousness becoming conscious within us, around us, and about us, whatever way you want to describe it. So this is very much about you today, as much as it was about Jesus 2,000 years ago. And we can thank him for being the most wonderful teacher that he was, and the most wonderful, amazing, enlightened master that he became. Now remember, he had to move into Christ consciousness the same as you and I have to. So of course we'll naturally ask ourselves the question, well, how do you do that? You see, because we want to know, we want to be able to do this. And there is only the one way of doing it, actually. Only the one way of doing it. And that one way of doing it is a two-part thing. It's to be in spiritual practice and be engaged in sacred service. And there is no other way of becoming Christ consciously aware in oneself and in all else besides. It's through a spiritual practice and through sacred service. In other words, Jesus worked on himself, really worked on himself, took his spiritual life seriously and did what it took for him to do in order to decrease as far as the humanity of himself was concerned and increase as far as the divinity of himself was concerned. Now, his spiritual practice was varied. His spiritual practice would contain what we know and what we don't know, of course, and it would contain him going out into the wilderness, going out onto the lake, going up into the high mountains, entering the synagogue. We are told he entered the synagogue as was his custom. So he was communing with what he called the Father, which was his favorite word for the divine, for the Almighty, for the Omega, for the Alpha and the Omega. That was his favorite term for the power and the presence of life itself, love itself, and light itself. In fact, he called God Abba, Daddy, Daddy, a very endearing term, much more intimate term than Father. Something cold about Father. I know when I used to be annoyed with my mother, I'd say, Mother! And so he had this sense of deep intimacy with that which was empowering him, and that which lived in him and through him and as him. And he was very, very aware that it wasn't himself that was being represented, his human self being represented. No, this word is not my own. It is the word of the one who sent me. This is not my work. It is the work of the kingdom, the work of the Father. And so he had that very great sense of himself as being an instrument, as being a channel, as being a tool for the divinity that he was now consciously aware of. And the way he went about that was he began through his spiritual practice, he began through his sacred service to identify less and less with his humanity and to identify more and more with his divinity. He began to identify less and less with the flesh of things and more with the spirit of things. He began to be identified less and less with the egoic aspect of himself and more with the infinite intelligent aspect of himself, the spirit of himself. And to the point that eventually he became so identified with the spirit, with the divine, with the infinite state of being and his intuitive intelligence that the rest faded away. He became totally unified and entered into the unified sonship with the Father. And that unified state of sonship is something all of us can enter into, because God, as Meister Eckhart says, is eternally begetting the only begotten. So that eternal unified sonship is there for you and it's there for me. It doesn't know gender. It's there for all of us. So that's how Jesus did it. He knew as he was moving through his spiritual practice, through his sacred service, he got to realize more and more that I and the Father are one. He who sees me sees the Father. It is the Father's great delight to give to me the kingdom and all of its gifts. I am the apple, so to speak, of God's eye. I am the beloved in whom God is well pleased. He knew all of this about himself, but only could when he'd left the egoic state of being, with all of its doubt and all of its fear and all of its disillusionment and all of its illusions and all of its limitation and all of its lack and all of its pull to keep you stopped and blocked and agitated and aggravated and so on. So he managed to move up out of that egoic state of being and enter into the state of full sonship, personhood, Christed, consciously aware. And he said, listen, you too can do what I have done. This is just not for me or a few special individuals. It's for you. It's for everyone else too. So you get to put on the mind that was in Christ Jesus. You get to enter into Buddhahood. You get to self-God realize. Absolutely, you get to do that. But to do it, you have to be it before you can do it or do from it. And the thing is, the frustrating thing is we're already there. We're already Christed. We are already graced. We are already blessed with sonship. We just have to wake up to it and become conscious of it. As Troard says, it's all about recognition, recognition, recognition. And then once you've recognized, identify with what you are recognizing. And then live from that, think from that, feel from that, speak from that, hear from that, do from that, be in that, and only that. And then all things else are added unto you. Once you seek first the kingdom of consciousness that is within you. The kingdom of heaven is not real estate in the sky. It's an energy within each one of us that's around us and about us and above us and below us. That's what the kingdom of heaven is. And so you and I are invited every single moment of our lives to wake up in it. To wake up in it. Because we are already ready for it. And so today asks us that question. Am I serious about, really now, come on, am I serious about becoming Christ conscious aware? That's the question. Seriously. Seriously. How many of us in this room want to be coming into that awareness of Christ consciousness? Now, it's a rhetorical question. I'm just asking us all. Because if we are serious about it, then we must be serious about how we go about it. I mean, that's the most important part of it, the action part. I can see, I can discover, I can realize, but what am I going to do with it once I've done that? I must move upon it. I must act upon it. Now, for each one of us, that's going to look, different. It'll be different for every single one of us. Jesus did it in his way, Buddha did it in his way, and so on. And you will do it in your way. You're doing it in your way, as I am doing it in mine. But the first thing that you and I have to do is get over ourselves. Now, you would think that was easy. And we say it to each other all the time, get over yourself. We say it to ourselves, Moira, get over yourself. But I mean, do we really grasp what that means? Do we really want to get over ourselves? Because if we did, we would really put our back to it. We would put our shoulder to it. We would be serious about it. And getting over ourselves means overcoming the tenacity of the negativity of the egoic state of being, of the egoic mind, the mortal mind, the monkey mind that keeps us agitated and churned up and annoyed and upset. And it takes very little for that to throw a spanner in the works and get us all knocked off our center so very easily. So we have to watch that little monkey mind. We have to watch that egoic tendency within ourselves and not take it oh so very seriously. And that's why some people will look at another person and say, seriously? I don't know what they mean by that. I get the energy behind it. But I don't know what they mean. Seriously? Well, I mean, if I was saying that to myself over and over again, maybe I'd get over myself a bit more quickly. So I think it's a question, or it's a statement that should be said to the self, the small self of ourselves. Seriously? You know, come on now, kiddo, monkey mind kiddo. Get a grip, you know, get a grip. I have that little girl with the bowl of cherries, you know, life is a bowl of cherries, and she's the hat on, and she's standing like this, and she's going, get over it. And I have it on my refrigerator, just where the handle is. And so many times I look at her and I say, oh, don't you dare today. You could just shut up now. I'll get over myself when I'm good and ready. But see, that's how we are, and that's okay once in a while. We get to do that once in a while. But if we're doing it all of the time, it's not good. It's not good, because we're not going to get over anything if we can't get over ourselves. I tell you this much, if I can't get over me, I'm not getting over you. No way can I get over you if I can't get over me, or anything else for that matter. So the sweetness of the Christed conscious awareness is nothing moves me. Nothing moves me. Nothing moved Jesus. Nothing moved the sages and the saints that had come into that unified state of being. They didn't care. They did not care what you thought about them, what you were saying about them, etc., etc., etc. They only cared about living in the presence and in the power of the beloved Spirit, the unconditioned and the unconditional love of the Father, Abba, the beloved, in whom all of us live, move, and have our being, and of whom Spirit is always well pleased. Would you believe that? Even when we're in our naughtiest times, Spirit looks at us and is well pleased. Why? Because Spirit doesn't see the naughtiness. Spirit only sees its own image and its own likeness as Spirit beholds each one of us, as the image and the likeness of itself, the apple of its eye. You see, because all of the nonsense we get up to, all of the naughtiness we get into, is a human construct. It has nothing to do with the divine. The divine knows none of it, doesn't see it, is not aware of it in you. We are aware of it in each other. As a mother once said to me, when the child missed the catechism answer what original sin was, she said, well, they didn't have to go to a catechism to ask me. I just look at my 4 children and I know exactly what original sin is. She was joking. But I got the joke. And so, my dear ones, what is it about these things that really and truly aggravate us and annoy us? It's because we want it, but we won't do what it takes to get it. That's what aggravates us and annoys us. We'll stay in our own bad selves. We'll do what we like, thank you very much, even if it's not unto my good or the good of anybody else. But that's just how I am. Anybody ever said that to you? Well, that's just how I am. That's just who I am. Well, who I am is not that. And I don't have to be like that. And we need each other as a village to remind each other that we're better than we appear to be. We're better than we're thinking right now. We're better than we're speaking right now. We're better than we're doing right now. So much more better than that. This is not you. This is not your best you. This is something less than you are. Are you sure you want to continue in this vein? Is this the way you want to be all the time? Less than you are. Wouldn't you love to be the moreness, the greatness, the powerfulness that you are in truth, rather than all this nonsense? And then the way we bump into each other and upset each other and hurt each other and do all of those things because the ego is in charge and not the Spirit. The Spirit doesn't get hurt. The Spirit doesn't react. The Spirit doesn't get discomforted. The Spirit does not fall out with anything or anyone. The Spirit always is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And so when we're in a conscious Christ state of awareness, nothing moves us. It all just is isness. We can look at everything and just say, it is what it is, without judgment. It just is. And be at peace, that peace that passes understanding. And to come from that unconditioned awareness. Most of us have a conditioned awareness. We're conditioned by this, that, and the other, past and present, and the fears of the future condition us. And so we're not unconditioned. So therefore we can't be unconditional in the way we live our lives or in the way we love each other or in anything for that matter. But we have to wake up today. Maybe could be the day for someone in this room. Someone in this room could get it today and jump themselves into that state of enlightenment and realize, oh my goodness me, look at all the energy I've spent on nonsense. Look at all of the worry and the concern I've spent on that which is ridiculous, etc. You know yourself what that would look like for you. We all do. So I could free myself this moment. I could just allow the truth to set me free. I could roll the stone away from that place I have entombed myself in fear, in doubt, in worry, in regret, in aggravation, in annoyance, in anger, in lack, in limitation. I could roll the stone away from that and free myself. Roll that stone of lack and limitation away and free myself to enter into the truth that would set me free. Free to be all that I can be, the power, the presence, the life, the light, the love, the glory of God fully alive right now, as Jesus did and all the other enlightened ones did. You can do it. Enlightenment is happening now as much as it was ever before. There are people amongst us who are enlightened. We don't know who they are necessarily because that's the way they're playing it. But we do have enlightened people with us all of the time, because if we didn't, the place would go to hell in a handbasket. Someone has to keep the energy up and the light on. And that someone could be you. That someone could be you. All this world needs, all that it would take for this world to move into a compassionate world that works for all is you. That's all the world needs. You. You and you only. You to wake up and become a little more sovereign in your being and become a little more enlightened about how and who and what you are, and to become a little more giving with regard to unconditional love, and to be showing up a little more in sacred service, consciously aware you're in sacred service. Now that doesn't mean that you write on your schedule, sacred service from 2 to 4. Let me tell you, your whole life is sacred service. You make your whole life a life of sacred service. You don't put on your schedule pad either, prayer, meditation or something, 7 to 8. Your whole life is a meditation and your whole life is a prayer. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good. There are prayers and prayers. There are meditations and meditations. But what the key here is to be awake, present, alert, monitoring yourself, monitoring your mind, monitoring your emotions, see what's going on. If a change needs to occur, then change what needs to be changed immediately. And not let it build up. Get up in the morning, it's a great day, it's a good day, I heard the birds singing, they're gorgeous, it's lovely, it's going to be the best day ever, and then by 1 o'clock you're absolutely miserable. And then you say, well, I woke up well and I felt well, and then you oh my gosh, the past 3 hours I've been thinking of that negative thing. See, monitor the mind, pay attention, tune in often, because that's how you and I self-realize, by monitoring our minds. All the time, erasing and replacing, erasing. If you would only do as much with your mind as you do with your gadgets with regard to erasing and replacing, all of us would be walking on water. There'd be no problem at all. We'd be living in a lovely world. In fact, we would have transcended this one. We'd have been so great and good and grand and gone on to bigger and better things. So that could be a little reminder to you when you start doing this. Okay, what's going on in my mind now? Not much of anything, because I'm in this game, Fantasyland or whatever it is. So just pace yourself and bring balance. That's all we can do in order to flourish and to thrive. And know the beauty and the grace and the glory of God is brilliant within you. I don't care how half dead you feel or how miserable you feel or how awful you feel. The brilliance and the glory and the power and the presence of Spirit is brilliant within you, never dimmed for a moment by anything you might do, say, or become. The brilliance is there, and at any time you can tune into it, dive into it, draw up from it, and transform anything. That's what today is about. Transformation. The resurrection of the truth that transforms us and sets us free. So I am saying, do you really and truly want Christ-conscious awareness? Yes. Well, then get moving into it. Move it forward. Make your movement a movement of love, light, and life, and you'll be there, and so it is. Okay.
We invite you to experience Dr. Moira in person on Sundays. Our services are at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., and childcare is available. Please join us. If you enjoy these messages and would like to make a donation to our center, please visit our website at RedondoCSL.org. Thank you for your support of this ministry.